Summary of the Brain That Changes Itself. Stories of Personal Triumph from the Frontiers of Brain Science by Norman Doidge. Chapter 1. Overview. The Brain That Changes Itself is a groundbreaking exploration of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. This concept revolutionized our understanding of the brain, challenging long-held beliefs about its fixed nature. Imagine Dr. Maria Hernandez, a neuroscientist who has dedicated her career to studying brain plasticity. As she walks through her lab, she reflects on the paradigm shift that has occurred in her field over the past few decades. When I started my career, Dr. Hernandez muses, we believed the brain was hardwired after childhood. We thought that if a part of the brain was damaged, those functions were lost forever. But now we know the brain is incredibly adaptable, even in adulthood. Dr. Hernandez's work, like the stories Doidge presents in his book, demonstrates how the brain can rewire itself in response to experience, learning, and even injury. She recalls a patient, Tom, who suffered a stroke that damaged the area of his brain responsible for speech. Traditional wisdom would have suggested Tom's speech abilities were permanently impaired. However, through intensive therapy and exercises designed to engage undamaged parts of his brain, Tom gradually regained much of his ability to communicate. This case, and others like it, illustrate a central theme of Doidge's book. The brain's plasticity offers hope for recovery and improvement in various conditions once thought to be untreatable. The overview of the brain that changes itself likely touches on several key areas where neuroplasticity has been observed. 1. Recovery from brain injury. Like Tom's case, the book probably discusses how the brain can reorganize to compensate for damaged areas. 2. Learning and memory. The book may explore how our brains physically change as we learn new skills or memorize information. 3. Sensory processing. There might be discussions about how the brain adapts to changes in sensory input, such as in cases of blindness or deafness. 4. Emotional and psychological well-being. The book likely delves into how plasticity relates to mental health, addiction, and psychological treatments. 5. Aging. Doidge might address how understanding plasticity can help us maintain cognitive function as we age. Dr. Hernandez continues her walk through the lab, stopping to observe a colleague working with advanced brain imaging technology. We can actually see the brain changing now, she explains. When someone learns a new skill or recovers from an injury, we can observe physical changes in their brain structure and activity patterns. This ability to observe neuroplasticity in action has profound implications for treatment and rehabilitation. It suggests that with the right interventions, the brain can be rewired to improve function or compensate for deficits. However, Dr. Hernandez is quick to note that while plasticity offers great potential, it's not a magic cure-all. The brain's ability to change is powerful, but it has limits, she cautions. Factors like age, extent of injury, and the specific neural systems involved all play a role in how much plasticity we can expect. The overview of Doidge's book likely emphasizes that understanding neuroplasticity is not just about treating disorders or injuries. It has implications for how we approach education, personal development, and even our understanding of human potential. As Dr. Hernandez concludes her lab tour, she reflects on the broader implications of neuroplasticity research. This work isn't just changing how we treat brain disorders, she says. It's changing how we think about the human mind and our capacity for change throughout life. It's a message of hope and empowerment. Remember, this narrative is a general illustration of the concepts likely covered in the overview of Doidge's book, not a direct representation of its content. For the most accurate and detailed information, I'd recommend reading The Brain That Changes Itself directly. Chapter 2. How is the brain reshaped? Neuroplasticity is the brain's remarkable ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. This concept challenges the old notion that the brain is a physiologically static organ, suggesting instead that it can adapt its physical structure and change how it functions. Imagine Sarah, a vibrant 65-year-old who recently suffered a stroke affecting the left side of her brain. Initially, she struggled with speech and movement on her right side. But Sarah's story doesn't end there. Through intensive therapy and practice, her brain began to adapt. Areas of her brain that weren't previously responsible for these functions started to take on new roles. Over time, Sarah regained much of her speech ability, and her right side mobility improved significantly. This is neuroplasticity in action. Her brain essentially rewired itself to compensate for the damaged areas. Another example of brain reshaping occurs in learning. When John decided to learn to play the piano at age 40, he thought it might be too late. But as he practiced consistently, his brain began to change. The areas of his brain responsible for finger movement and coordination grew more robust. His ability to read music activated and strengthened neural pathways between visual processing areas and motor control regions. These changes weren't just functional, they were physical. If we could look inside John's brain, we might see increased gray matter in areas related to music and fine motor skills. This physical reshaping of the brain demonstrates how our experiences and actions can literally change our brain structure. The concept of brain reshaping extends beyond recovery and learning. It applies to how we think, our habits, and even our emotional responses. For instance, meditation practitioners have been found to have increased thickness in areas of the brain associated with attention and sensory processing. The key takeaway is that our brains are not fixed entities but dynamic, ever-changing organs that adapt to our experiences and behaviors. This understanding opens up exciting possibilities for rehabilitation, learning, and personal growth at any age. It's important to note that while the brain's ability to change is powerful, it's not unlimited. Factors like age, the extent of damage in cases of injury, and the intensity and consistency of new experiences or therapies all play roles in how much reshaping can occur. Remember, these examples and explanations are general illustrations of the concept, not specific accounts from Doidge's book. If you're interested in more detailed information, I'd recommend reading The Brain That Changes Itself directly or consulting recent scientific literature on neuroplasticity. Chapter 3: How Reshaping the Brain Can Change People's Lives. Sarah, a dedicated elementary school teacher in her mid-40s. For years, Sarah struggled with severe anxiety that affected every aspect of her life. Simple tasks like grocery shopping or attending social gatherings would trigger panic attacks, leaving her feeling helpless and isolated. Sarah had tried various treatments, from medication to traditional talk therapy, but nothing seemed to provide lasting relief. Then, one day, while browsing the library, she stumbled upon Doidge's book, The Brain That Changes Itself. Intrigued by the concept of neuroplasticity, she began to explore how she might reshape her own brain to overcome her anxiety. Inspired by the book's teachings, Sarah embarked on a journey of neuroplastic change. She started with mindfulness meditation, dedicating 20 minutes each morning to focus on her breath and observe her thoughts without judgment. At first, it was challenging. Her mind would race, filled with anxious thoughts. But she persisted, understanding that this practice was slowly rewiring her brain's response to stress. Next, Sarah incorporated cognitive behavioral techniques into her daily routine. She learned to identify her negative thought patterns and actively challenge them. Each time she caught herself catastrophizing about a future event, she would pause, take a deep breath, and consciously replace the anxious thought with a more balanced perspective. As weeks turned into months, Sarah noticed subtle changes. The pit in her stomach that once accompanied her everywhere began to shrink. She found herself able to go to the grocery store without her heart racing. Small victories accumulated, fueling her motivation to continue. But the real test came when Sarah was invited to present at a teacher's conference. In the past, such an event would have been unthinkable. Now, although still nervous, she felt a new sense of control. As she stood at the podium, Sarah took a deep breath, just as she had practiced countless times. To her amazement, she delivered her presentation calmly and confidently. What Sarah experienced was neuroplasticity in action. Through consistent practice and targeted techniques, she had reshaped the neural pathways in her brain associated with anxiety. The amygdala, often overactive in anxiety sufferers, had learned to respond more appropriately to perceived threats. Meanwhile, The prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation, had strengthened its ability to modulate her emotional responses. Sarah's transformation didn't stop at managing her anxiety. With her newfound confidence, she took on leadership roles at her school, mentoring new teachers and developing innovative curricula. Her relationships improved as she became more present and engaged. She even started a support group for others dealing with anxiety, sharing her journey and the principles of neuroplasticity that had changed her life. This narrative illustrates how reshaping the brain through neuroplasticity can have far-reaching effects on a person's life. It's not just about alleviating symptoms. It's about opening up new possibilities and transforming one's entire lived experience. The principles Sarah applied, consistent practice, targeted techniques, and persistence, are key elements in harnessing neuroplasticity for personal change. Whether it's overcoming anxiety like Sarah, recovering from a stroke, learning a new skill, or breaking bad habits, the brain's ability to change offers hope and empowerment. It's important to note that while neuroplasticity offers tremendous potential, it's not a quick fix. Reshaping the brain takes time, effort, and often professional guidance. But for many, like Sarah, the results can be life-changing. This story encapsulates the transformative power of neuroplasticity that Doidge likely explores in his book. It demonstrates how understanding and applying the principles of brain plasticity can lead to profound personal growth and life improvement. Chapter 4. Conclusion. Imagine Dr. Elena Rossi, a neuroscientist who has dedicated her career to studying neuroplasticity. As she prepares to give a keynote speech at an international conference, she reflects on the journey that has brought her and the field of neuroscience to this point. Dr. Rossi takes a deep breath as she steps onto the stage, facing an auditorium filled with colleagues, students, and patients whose lives have been touched by the discoveries in neuroplasticity. 20 years ago, she begins, when I first entered this field, we viewed the brain as a complex but ultimately fixed machine. We believed that after childhood, the brain structure was set in stone. How wrong we were. She pauses, allowing the weight of those words to sink in. Today, we stand at the frontier of a revolution in our understanding of the human brain. We now know that the brain is not static, but dynamic, constantly changing, adapting, and rewiring itself in response to our experiences, thoughts, and actions. Dr. Rossi clicks to her first slide, showing before and after brain scans of a stroke patient who regained the ability to speak. This is Michael, she explains. 5 years ago, a stroke left him unable to form coherent sentences. Traditional wisdom would have said his condition was permanent. But through intensive therapy designed to engage undamaged parts of his brain, Michael not only regained his speech, but has become a powerful advocate for neuroplasticity-based treatments. She moves to the next slide, showing a series of brain scans taken over several months. And here we see the brain of Lisa, a woman who overcame severe depression not through medication, but through cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness practices. Notice how the activity in her prefrontal cortex, the area associated with mood regulation, changed over time. Dr. Rossi's voice grows passionate as she continues. What these cases and countless others like them show us is that the brain's plasticity offers hope where once there was none. It tells us that recovery from brain injury, management of mental health conditions, and even enhancement of cognitive abilities are all within reach. But then her tone becomes cautionary. However, it's crucial to understand that neuroplasticity is a double-edged sword. Just as the brain can change in ways that benefit us, it can also change in ways that harm us. Chronic stress, addiction, and negative thought patterns can all reshape our brains in detrimental ways. She clicks to a new slide, showing a quote, "Neurons that fire together, wire together." This simple phrase encapsulates a fundamental principle of neuroplasticity, Dr. Rossi explains. Every thought, every action, every experience shapes our brain. This means that we have more power over our brain's development than we ever imagined, but it also means we bear a greater responsibility for its care. As she nears the end of her speech, Dr. Rossi's voice takes on a note of excitement. The implications of neuroplasticity extend far beyond the medical field. They challenge our notions of human potential, learning, and personal growth. They suggest that it's never too late to change, to learn, to grow. She looks out at the audience, making eye contact with as many people as she can. But perhaps most importantly, the science of neuroplasticity gives us hope. Hope for those struggling with neurological disorders or mental health conditions. Hope for the elderly facing cognitive decline. Hope for anyone who has ever felt limited by their own brain. Dr. Rossi takes a final pause before delivering her closing statement. As we continue to unravel the mysteries of neuroplasticity, we're not just changing our understanding of the brain. We're changing our understanding of what it means to be human. The brain that changes itself is not just a scientific concept. It's a testament to the remarkable adaptability and resilience of the human spirit. As applause fills the auditorium, Dr. Rossi steps back from the podium, feeling a sense of awe at how far the field has come and excitement for the discoveries that lie ahead. This narrative encapsulates the transformative implications of neuroplasticity that Doidge likely explores in his book's conclusion. It highlights the paradigm shift in our understanding of the brain, the hope it offers for various conditions, and the profound implications for human potential and personal growth. However, for the most accurate representation of Doidge's conclusions, I'd recommend reading The Brain That Changes Itself directly. Thank you for listening. I hope this content is useful to you. If you like this kind of content, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel to support our team.